In 3, 2, 1. Good morning. This is Animal on Control. Welcome to the voice chat. These calls are pre-recorded for upload to social media, and by joining a call, you are consenting to being recorded. Anyone wishing to join a call should email me at animaloncontrol@gmail.com, and I will reply with instructions. Merry Christmas, everyone. Today's topics: rage monster dog owners, feral dog remediation, some gun porn, and potpourri. Joining me is Huntress. Welcome back.
Hi. Hey,
hello.
Thanks.
So how are things on your end? Do you have a barky dog issue currently?
Yeah, it's not as bad since it's just the one, but it's such a booming bark, and it barks at the same people that walk by every day at about the same time. It's not nearly as bad as when there were two of them and they were trying to be dog ranchers and they had like 8 puppies or whatever. And yeah, I have a recording of that. It's, I think, unlisted on my YouTube channel. But we recorded it and then looped it over itself, just like 7 seconds, and then looped it over and played it really loud on these wireless speakers with the window open, pointed at them. Those dogs were gone the next day, those puppies and the mom.
Wow. Well, hey, we're always looking for solutions on here, and sometimes, some of the quote advice you get is like, well, don't escalate a noise war. But it's like, I say, screw that. If it works, do it. Because you know what? Turnabout is fair play. If they're going to noise pollute you, noise pollute them right back, particularly if it's with the same noise. And it's interesting.
Yes.
I've heard that tactic is becoming quite popular and quite effective because, if you retaliate with a different noise, like, you start playing, Van Halen on a pair of refrigerator-sized speakers, like, loud music and barky dogs are typically handled very differently. They shouldn't be, but they are. But yeah, you just play, and again, if they call the cops on you, it's like, hey, I listen to their dog bark and they listen to their dog bark. What's the problem, right? So yeah, good, nice. That's excellent. Really
yeah,
is.
I'll have to share that because it is something else, and it was awful. And they would start at 1 in the morning. Those puppies, it for about 2 weeks, it was just like, oh my God. And one evening, I started blasting goth music to them, which was like, okay, well, they might actually, I don't know, maybe not, because I don't know, there's mariachi music that comes from that place, so maybe they hated the goth, but they certainly hated the sound of those puppies. And I'll have to share it. I don't know if I could do that.
I don't know. We can share it on here. I always have a problem sharing anything with sound. Maybe for the new year, I'll work on some technical improvements so we can do that, share videos with sound. I can share video without sound, but if I try to bring sound into it, there's all this feedback and distortion and stuff. But I think it's an interesting, tactic. And you always wonder, what's one of the well, there's a lot of things that make barking dogs intolerable, but a lot of it is, I think it's a control issue, because sometimes people think, okay, why doesn't it bother the dog owner as much as everybody around them? And I think there's a few reasons. I mean, one of them, I think that many of them are just detached from reality, but it's a control issue, right? So they know they can, shut it off when they need to. It's like, okay, I'm going to go to bed now. I'll bring the dogs in or whatever, right, to shut them up. But the thing is, it's a control issue. But if you're the neighbor, you don't have that. You don't know when it's going to start or how long it's going to last when it does. So really what's happening is the dog owner is actually running your life. So if the dogs get let out to bark at 4 in the morning, right? Of course, they're doing that because it doesn't bother them, right? Because they're already up. But it's almost like they're setting your alarm clock for you. they're literally controlling other people's lives. And, I'd like to focus more on stuff like that. The damage that it does to people and to neighborhoods. It's a extremely serious human health, human quality of life, and human rights issue. Just strictly the dog noise pollution component of this, just by itself.
Yeah. It seems like some people don't mind the noise, or somehow I don't know what it is. Like, I used to live next door to a family. I called them the Loud family, like from the old SNL, the Loud family, always screaming back and forth at each other and stuff. And it was just so noisy at that house. And I'm I have sensory overload. So, I have to, oh God, I have to go. I have to get, and just go back to my quiet house. Some people live like that and they don't mind it. I mean, it's just constant chaos, TV turned up real loud, all the kids screaming and talking, the dogs barking. I mean, I would go crazy, seriously, myself.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
tolerance level and stuff. And then, the nuttery part, like, I forgot where I heard that, where some girl said, "Oh, I don't mind the sound of barking dogs when I go on a walk. It's like they're talking to me." And it's like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that noise, it's not even, well, again, it's not a natural sound, and it's a, dog, that's that feature, it's kind of like the innate aggression that's particular to a lot of dog breeds. That's part of it is, the barking, that, it's kind of like a really crude proximity alarm. And that's what it is. It's an alarm, and it's a sound that's designed to draw, your attention to it, to basically create a fight or flight response. And that's one reason why it's so stressful, because you when that sound goes off, your body reacts to it and you can't help it. And the thing with those people, they can say, well, it doesn't bother me. I think most of them are lying. I don't believe them when they say that. And even the folks that, perhaps that is true for some small number of people, but the noise, it affects the body, whether the person is fully realizes that or not. I mean, sometimes if people draw a parallel to like secondhand smoke, actually, I think barking is worse than secondhand smoke. But like if somebody says, yeah, secondhand smoke is no big deal. It's like, yeah, my roommate, chain smokes 7 packs a day, and it, with all the windows closed, and it doesn't bother me. It's like, look, maybe it doesn't consciously bother you, but it's affecting you. You're not breathing all that smoke with no downside. There's, at least some downside. The same thing with this noise. It's like honking a horn or a fire alarm going off, right? It's designed to, raise his cortisol levels and so forth. It's really, particularly if it's repetitive, if it keeps happening, it's really, really bad for the body. And it's just shameful that, authorities don't do more about it, and that it's sort of been normalized. It's terrible, but it's good.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm highly sensitive, and so I know how it affects me. Especially if, I think I've probably become slightly accustomed to hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
Before, when it just went off, or the neighbors before, the Sir barks a lot, and Sir 1 and 2, who were Dobermans, that barked at everything. I mean, that was endless. This one here, this is almost as good as the germaphobe living there for a couple of years that had 0 pets. It's not as bad, but when it gets going, like sometimes they'll kennel it on the weekend when they go off, so it's just barking and it's just whoa. I mean, just coming in, windows closed now because it's cooler out and stuff. It just, I know what it's doing to me. I'm quite sensitive. I don't think a lot of people are in touch with their personal health, mental or physical, to that degree. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, some people are more cognizant that changes in their body. Funny, one of these other blogs I follow outside the space, And the person, he's a nurse in a Florida hospital, and he talks about how, people come into the emergency room and they got, they're complaining about this, that, and the other thing. And they've got something like, they have their blood sugar tested, and it's like their blood glucose is like an 1100, and which is like ridiculously high, and then you think, okay, didn't that person realize there was something wrong before that? Like it actually had to go to that, like to the point where, okay, now your hands and feet need to be cut off. They didn't pick up on it. Yeah, they're just, some people, I guess, are just oblivious to what's going on with their body. So,
oh yeah,
but that doesn't make it okay, right? So, yeah. But yeah, good. I'm glad you got some relief there. That's good. Of course, now you have the new dog. What is it? Is it a pit bull back there?
God, no. Thank God. No, I think it's a German Shepherd Malinois mix or whatever.
Oh, great.
And it's always, it can put its head over the corner of the wall. It's like a 5-foot wall. I wish it was 6 or 8 foot, but so far I since they don't, train or do whatever with it, it's too stupid to figure out how to jump over the wall. Thank God. But I mean, but there's another Malinois that lives somewhere. I don't know where, but I catch it on my security camera in the middle of the night. It wants to jump over the wall to get to my neighbor's dog. It's out. It's out almost every single night. It just like takes over the street.
Jeez.
But it doesn't bark though, because I think it's taken on more of the personality of the coyotes. That there'll be that Malinois, and in 15 minutes later there'll be a coyote or two in the yard. So it's kind of acclimated. It's streetwise.
Yeah, it's a Malinois. It's another like nasty ass murder mutt. Those things are going to start to, it's already starting, as they're going to start to, move up the charts. Like sometimes we show these, dog bite related fatalities by breed. And of course, pit bulls are at the top of the chart. But I think that Malinois is definitely going to move up that chart. They're going to be probably definitely in the top 5, if not the top 3, like fairly soon, because they're very popular.
Yeah,
they're bred for aggression also. I mean, they're not fighting. Well, they're actually bred to attack people because they're used as police dogs. And that's what they do, is they, attack people. I was reading something in one of the Reds. It was someone who was working with their city's, police department. And I guess they were doing some sort of meet and greet with the police dogs. They said, oh, I'll bring some, some dog treats, like some T-bones or something for the dogs. And you know what they said? They said, no, you know what the treat is? The treat is that the dog gets to attack somebody. That's the treat, right? Oh, but these things just make great family pets. Just let them run the neighborhood. It's all good, right?
I just don't understand why people are in such fear that they think they need these quote unquote guard dogs. And it's
that, but it's not so much they're in fear. I think they just like intimidating people, because there's much better ways to. It's kind of like the service dog. It's like the whole guard dog, paradigm is just stupid. There's so many, even if you live in a place where you can't get a hold of firearms, there's so many much more reliable, accurate ways to, controllable ways to defend yourself than some like out of control murder mutt. Because even the well-trained police dogs, they'll just go on attack sprees. I mean, it's very, very common. So the thing is, okay, and that's a well-trained police dog. This is some untrained mutt is going to do, or like, Joe Six-Pack is going to do better. It's like, it's very, very doubtful. I think, and that's one reason why I often spend a lot of time, attacking service dogs and police dogs and the like, because that that notion needs to be defeated also. So
yeah, well, remember the story? Well, there have been a couple of them, but I think one was in an airport, and the airport security guy was like walking his, German Shepherd or Malinois or whatever, back and forth on the thing. It didn't do what he wanted to, so he kind of yanked it on its leash and kind of pulled its front paws off the ground, and someone reported that guy. But it's like, well, that's that's how he's built his relationship with his dog, that he has control over it, is doing just that.
right. Yeah, well, that's the thing is that today, like the current crop of dog cultists think that doing something like physically correcting the dog or even yelling at the dog is animal abuse. And that might apply to other animals, but with dogs, like with my stepfather's dogs, like he didn't hurt them physically, at least not that I observed, but he would be considered an animal abuser by today's standards because he treated them like dogs and not human toddlers, because that's the new, the current cultural climate that, well, what do? You don't treat your dog like a dog anymore. You dress it in pajamas, read it Dr. Seuss, and spoon feed it whipped cream, and that'll give you good results. And the thing is, it doesn't, because my observation, some people say that, well, the whole alpha dog pack leader thing has been discredited. And it's like, okay, maybe, but just from observing dogs, people with dogs, my own interaction with dogs, is that they need to know who's boss, right? There's it's interesting, Joe. I think Joe might join a little later, but last year we did a whole big segment on like the social dynamic and play here, and how dog owners are actually very much like the animals themselves in terms of social dynamic. Like,
oh, definitely.
Because but you can see there's a sort of a fascistic, alpha pack leader, aside, there's definitely a sort of a top down social dynamic in play. Right? Either you're the boss or they are. And it has to be, enforced very rigidly. So if you want your dog to behave, you have to constantly reinforce the fact that you're in charge and he isn't. Because if you don't, that's where you get a lot of these behavioral problems. Of course, I know some of the dog, like, oh, you're not a behaviorist. It's like, look, I don't need to be a physicist to know that, like, gravity is real. Like, if I toss a ball in the air, yes, it's going to fall to the ground. And no, I don't need a half a dozen PhDs or expert guidance to figure that out. So, yeah, it's pretty, in a way, it's kind of straightforward stuff. But yeah, that kind of behavior, or that, actually treating the dog like a dog, is now animal abuse. So
yeah, well, and remember, and I wasn't comparing raising children to raising dogs, but that whole thing in the 70s, I think, with Dr. Spock, don't discipline, or punish your children, let them find their way or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that kind of ended. And then it turned corporal punishment into child abuse. But, and within reason and within limits, I was spanked, but, I can remember the reasons why I was, and it wasn't constant beatings. There's, there was no fine line broken there, but it's the same concept as, okay, no more manhandling the dogs. You put them in binkies and, whatever, the same thing. But the problem with those things, with that method, is children have to be taught boundaries. They have to be taught that there is authority. They don't have to kowtow completely to BS. But how are you going to hold a job if you can't respect your boss? So there is authority. There's appropriate ways to act somewhere. And sometimes, yes, when the adults are having, a thing, it's like, in that case, now you are to be seen and not heard. And same with the freaking dogs. It's like they need to know boundaries. They need to have discipline. and the authority, it's like, you don't run this household, I do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's the
Well,
same thing.
And the thing is though, like with children, you have, because they're not. I see your point though. I mean, I think it's valid, but you can teach children boundaries typically without using violence or threats thereof. Like you can say remove privileges, right? You can say, okay, if you don't go to bed on time, you're going to lose the Xbox for 2 weeks, right? You can't do that with a dog because a dog doesn't understand that. But at least
that's
older kids, so you can use that kind of stuff, or we'll take your allowance away or whatever, right? Or you're going to get a lump of coal for Christmas if you're bad.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of options. Like, with children, you have more, whereas like with a dog, so you could do things without using violence or yelling. There's still methods of.
Yeah, and how do you ground them for 2 weeks? They wouldn't know what the
heck. They wouldn't know. They don't understand that.
And what would you ground them from?
Right. Well, you're not going to take them outside to take a dump, because that's pretty much the only time most of them get to go outside anyway. So, and that would undo the house training. So, yeah, it's quite a mess. I want to segue into the first topic. Jones posted this. You can see this, right? This had my dog running off leash at blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he posted this. This was from his next door. And I thought this was interesting. And a bunch of us were talking about this the other day. So, had my dog running off leash this morning when a male, who I believe has harassed me before, and his German Shepherd puppy walked by the park. Within seconds, this man threatened to shoot me and my dog with his weapons. Well, he had more than one gun. I'm always carrying, and it said he has put down one before and isn't afraid to do it again. All over a dog being off leash in a park, not bothering anyone. Well, BS. Or running up to anyone. BS. Especially this man and his dog, right? By the way, my dog always has a pull-away leash attached to their neck. It just looks like BS. The dog was running at large in a place that doesn't allow it. Do I report him, call the cops? I have a previous video of him walking up to me and doing the same. Nothing from today unless someone has a ring video, etc. This man needs help. Yeah, and that kind of thing. This is not, if somebody has their dog off leash, like, don't threaten to shoot them, whether or not you have the means to do so. That's just going to get you into a lot of trouble. If their dog attacks you, that's another matter. But it was interesting, and there's a lot of let me look at this here. There's a whole big reply thread, and I'm just going to read it because there's a lot of like names on here, and I don't want to give away people's names. So here's somebody replies, well, if you and your dog were off leash, you are in violation also. Might he hesitate about calling the police unless he was actually brandishing a gun? Doesn't sound like he was. So yeah, I mean, did the man actually present a weapon, or is it just an empty threat? Someone else writes, I was bit in the stomach by a large dog off leash fairly soon after giving birth, and my baby was next to me in her stroller at face level to this dog. So I'm pretty opinionated and fearful of any dog off leash, good or bad. Well, they always say their dog is a good dog, right? I mean, they say, and then if the dog does, who do we got?
Oh no, I just moaned at that because that's
okay. I thought
famous
somebody
last words.
It's always, they always say, and it doesn't say like if the rules are dog on leash or leash dogs only. They're not saying, well, like poorly behaved dogs on leash. Like, I don't care if you think your dog is well behaved. right? Because it's running around. Yeah, it could jump up on somebody. It could run out into the street and get hit by a car. That's the thing is, yes, they're unpredictable. So, but there's all these other replies. You're breaking the law by not keeping your dog on leash. No ifs, ands, or buts. Maybe put your dog on a leash, someone else says. Okay, the guy who threatened went way over the line and should be reported. That said, my empathy wanes for people who believe the laws don't apply to them. Yeah, like dog people. So you're a good, this is what it is. So you're a good, responsible dog owner, and the laws should only apply to the irresponsible ones. Is that it? I'm sure the owners of off-leash dogs that ended up attacking other dogs thought they were responsible. Said, leash the dog or don't live in the city. Did you think your post would garner empathy? Right? And then there's another, yeah, I'm so sick of the irresponsible people let their dogs off leash, where it specifically states dogs must be leashed. They are so entitled. Yeah, pretty much there's a ton of responses here, and they're all like, but everybody's saying, yeah, okay, you're threatening to shoot somebody in a situation like that is over the top, but that doesn't excuse what they're doing. It's like, yeah, you know what? Dog owners need to obey the law, period.
Yeah. I think it is actually kind of a crime, although I don't know that it's enforced.
It's not.
It's kind of like making a terrorist threat. If you tell someone I'm going to kill you, that is against the law. But that's just these dog owners and their entitlement and their smugness really brings it out in some people. It's really hard to
it really gets on.
Bite your lip, man.
I've had, even just to tell you, but I've had a lot of negative dog encounters recently, and I guess it was 2 weekends ago I encountered the 2 aggressive pit bulls. I think it was the week before that or the week before that, and I saw when I was driving out of the park, actually it's a state forest, I saw it coming right off out of the trail. It's a woman and a young girl with 2 unleashed dogs. Again, they looked like pit bulls. And I just rolled down I screamed at her. I was like, leash your dogs, and the problem is it's a state. There's no park staff on site, at least not nearby. There's nobody to report it to, right? And I'm sure too, as if I'm thinking of writing a letter to the state forest director about this. I don't know if there's much they can do about it because these are wilderness areas. It's not like a state park where you have more development and there's uniformed rangers on site and stuff like that. The forest property, not so much. But here's another reply, says, someone I know left the door open. In about 20 minutes, their husky managed to run out, attack, and kill a smaller dog that was being walked by its owner. I know a couple of people literally have dog phobia or OCD. Keep your dog on a leash. This guy was overreacting, so I'm not defending him. But yeah, it could get into a fight with another dog. It could get hit by a car. There's all kinds of problems with this. They really, what's being expressed here is these things really don't belong in crowded communities. If you go down through the responses, let's see. So the OP writes, I see your point, but no, there was nothing more. As stated, my dog did not approach or even give a second look at this man or his dog. I was not even near them. So, but somebody writes, dude, this is not a quote, thread's logic. The law states your animal is to remain on a leash unless you're in a dog park. You created a problem allowing your dog off leash, and he would be in his right to protect himself if your dog got aggressive. I should emphasize again that, what the other person did, it's you don't threaten people like that. Like, yeah, you know what? If somebody whips out a meat cleaver and tries to take your head off, shoot them. But don't just stand there and like hurling threats at people. That's going to get you into trouble. So don't do it. And yes, I'm telling people what to do. I said that.
Well, I think that also some of these really bleeding hearts think that putting dogs on leashes is cruelty.
Well, that too, yeah. Well, then you know what? Then the thing is, we can't have off-leash dogs everywhere. So you know what? Maybe what the takeaway from that is that maybe keeping dogs in these crowded neighborhoods is cruel. Maybe what the restriction should be, you know what? We'll just make them, at least maybe the large dogs, like zoned out farm animals.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's sort of like, make it like having sheep or goats or something. It's like you need to have like at least, one fenced in acre that the animal can run around in. And because there's a point to be made for that. It's like none of these, I mean, everybody focuses on pit bulls, and it's like, yeah, they're the absolute, well, they're the worst of the worst that's popular. But most of this other stuff is only somewhat less bad. Right, none of these working dogs belong in apartments or crowded suburbs. I mean, even if it's just for the dog's sake, it's like, okay, it's cruel to leash them. Well, then they can't be there at all, right? Because if they know they're going to run in the road and cause car wrecks, and they're going to form, feral dog packs and all that kind of stuff. So, that's a disaster. And that was actually the next topic I wanted to segue into, but it's like all this stuff's like, oh, well, leashing the dog is cruel. Not allowing the dog to take a dump wherever it wants is cruel. Quieting the dog, like preventing the dog from barking around the clock, is cruel, and blah. Well, all that does is it's like, okay, those are just reasons that these things don't belong in communities.
Yes,
that's
actually,
the case.
The dogs, when someone will complain about dog barkings on next door dog door, the people come on, oh, dogs bark, that's what they do. Or, some people are like, well, check on them. They're barking because they're in distress and they might need help, and it's like, no, they're just barking because they're dumb and they make that noise, and I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, preventing the dog is like not. I think there's probably something to be said for that, because I don't think that a dog that barks all the time is a happy, well-adjusted dog. I think that there is something to be said for that. I mean, clearly the welfare of the animal is not our top priority, but there's something to be said. I know, like I did a monologue on my prior across the street neighbor, and they had a yellow lab tied up in their yard for about 4 months, and it barked and barked and barked and barked. But what was interesting was most of the barking was at them. And I did a video on it. I included a video clip of him. He's tied up outside in a thunderstorm, and he's just barking and barking and barking and barking and barking. And the dog, there's a lightning strike nearby. I even see like my reaction to it on camera. I was like, holy shit. But like lightning almost struck the dog. And of course, then it's just like barking even more. And it's barking, 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 barking. But the barking, he's not barking at anybody in the street. He's barking the direction he's aiming, is barking at the owner. Now, they're probably just passed out drunk in there, because I could see like from their, the recycling bins they would put out, they drank a lot. I mean, like a lot. The cheap stuff too, like those gallon jugs of wine that they sell on the bottom shelf of the grocery store.
Colt 45.
Yeah. Well, it was a lot of that. There was the big, the gallon jugs of wine, and Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. So, Yeah, PBR, there's a lot of that. They put out like 4 bins full of this stuff every week. At least they were, conscious about that. They were pretty good with the recycling, but
well, maybe they were just trying to numb themselves from what they've gotten into.
Well, that's the other thing too. It's like, I guess it's one way to avoid this is just be stoned out of your gourd all the time.
Yeah,
but that's
like,
not.
Dog barking, what?
That's not a legitimate, life choice, unfortunately. So, because you might say to them, it's like, yeah, okay, you're stoned out of your gourd all the time, but I'm not. That's the part of the problem. But
yeah, well, but there's a psychology, and that's kind of the same with the apathy of, even if you aren't stoned out of your gourd and your dog's just like raising havoc in the neighborhood, there is the same kind of thing as if they were just stoned out of their gourd, like, I don't GAF, whatever, go pound sand or whatever, get over it, wear earphones, whatever.
Yep. Yeah. So I wanted to segue to the next topic. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's hop back to this for a minute, because we were talking about this, and what was interesting was the person making the threats was a dog person. Because he was walking his dog, I guess presumably on a leash, and he completely flipped out and started making death threats at the person with the unleashed dog. And it kicked off a whole conversation, is because I think anybody who's been in this space, particularly people who, if you've been forced to confront a recalcitrant dog owner, is you see that kind of rage monster behavior. A really good example of that went viral was from New York. It was in New York City a few years ago. And it was a situation like this, but it was in reverse. So a woman was letting her dog run off leash in one of the city's parks. And a man approached her and said, look, this is an on leash area. And he said it's pretty, matter of factly, you need to leash your dog, right? And she completely flipped out. She started like screaming at him. She was like, grabbed the dog by the collar. She's like lifting the dog up off the ground, and she's just tantruming. She's screaming. She calls the police.
And it was a black dude, and it was
that was
bird,
the thing too, yeah,
bird sanctuary reserve. He was trying to be there and photograph birds.
Yep. And that was the thing was, she turned it into a racial incident.
Yeah.
Even though it was funny, we're talking about, he was probably more polite to her than I would have been.
Yeah.
But he was actually fairly, calm and collected. He said, look, the off-leash dog park is over there. Here it has to be on a leash. She completely flipped out. She turned it into a racial incident. She's, called police, says, yeah, really scary black man is disrespecting Fido. It's like, why? It's like, why I hate these people. It's like, why do you need to go there? What's the big deal? Just put the dog on a leash and it will all be good, right? But no, they got to completely flip out. And this kind of thing was sort of the same thing in reverse, where the other dog person flipped out, right? Because, threatening to shoot somebody is a pretty serious matter. But we were talking about like that kind of rage monster behavior is, it's not exclusive to dog people, but it's very, very particular to dog people. And I've discussed that many times. One reason people are getting out of the veterinary field is because of that kind of behavior. Like they tell them that, like, okay, you allowed your dog to eat the TV remote and now he needs a $3,000 surgery. And then the dog owner just, fuck you, fucking die. I'm going to rip off your head, shit down your neck. And they get sick of dealing with people like that. Even though the whole problem is, it's not like the dog got cancer or something, but it happens all the time. And they'll even tell you it's maybe not exclusive to dog people, but the same kind of thing. It's like 99.8% of the time it is. It's like people who own other species of pets very rarely act like that. But of course, they have very little reason to do so. It's like, did your cat eat the TV remote? It's like cats don't do things like that. Whatever else you can say about them. So so we're thinking like, okay, what's really being expressed there? Why do they act that way? And it was like Rodney and I, shout out to him, brought up that, his thesis is that a lot of these dogs, I hope I'm articulating it correctly. I don't mean to speak for him, but that a lot of these dog owners are sort of at wit's end with their dog already. Right, because the thing is keeping them awake with the barking, it's destroying valuable property, it's pissing and shitting all over the house in spite of attempts to house break it. All the neighbors are pissed at you, right? Your friends don't want to come over anymore. And so basically you have somebody who's they're just hanging by a thread. They're at their complete wit's end. And then somebody else, right, like the situation in New York or like this, they see something, they see somebody with an off-leash dog, or somebody tells them to leash their dog, and that's it. It's just like, that's the proverbial straw, and they just completely lose it. They just totally lose their shit. But really, the whole thing is their fault anyway, because, they chose to get a pet that is very high maintenance and prone to lots of offensive behaviors.
Yeah. So, yeah, that could be a lot of the people, and they're just like, they're so on their last nerves all the time because, what is the dog eating? What is the dog tearing up in the house? So put it outside, so it doesn't chew up the house, or, and then it doesn't like being on the leash and it's dragging you around. So let it get off the leash, just anything to like not be dragged down by this thing. Yeah, they probably are on their last nerves, but the solution is easy.
I mean, I don't have any sympathy for them.
No.
It's kind of like somebody who, blows all their money on luxury items and is broke. Right? I don't have any sympathy. Somebody who, bought like a 90-foot yacht and went bankrupt trying to maintain it. Like, I don't have any sympathy for somebody like that. I don't have any sympathy for these dog people either, because, and maybe initially, maybe, because that's the thing, is that there's so many lies or so much propaganda circulating about dog ownership, because the consensus or the popular or approved narrative is that dogs are these totally carefree best friends. Getting a dog or 5 is only going to make your life better. Okay, that's what is constantly like kind of ground into us from birth, right? It's because we have a very dog-centric culture, and of course, when people pursue that, they realize it's not true. But yes, some of them, they don't, like perhaps like this guy, the person indicated here, or the woman in Central Park. They don't want to admit it to themselves.
Yeah, and in that case, in New York, I think the sleuths, how quickly they can find out, identify, and get someone fired from a job is pretty remarkable. But they found out that the dog was just newly adopted by her from some rescue, and the rescue came and got that dog back.
Yeah,
that's a side note on that. But and maybe she was happy after that.
Maybe.
Oh, thank God! I was getting tired of this game I was playing with myself, trying to trick myself into thinking this was just so fun.
Yeah. It wasn't even, I think it was a Cocker Spaniel or something too. But still, I mean, those dogs, actually, it was before I met my now ex-wife. I've shared this story before, but it is a long time ago. Like when I was right out of school, I had a GF who had a Cocker Spaniel, and I was never really much of a dog person anyway, but I remember that the dog it barked inappropriately. It bit people. Although fortunately for me, it never bit me because it probably would have been launched into orbit if it had. But, it peed all over the house, et cetera, et cetera. And she would complain about it. Like we'd go out to dinner or she'd come over to, she didn't, thing is she was living with her parents and I had my own place. So she'd come over and be like, man, I am so fucking sick of that dog, and I'm trying to be like, kind of kind and understanding. It's like, gee, I'm sorry to hear that. That would be, I didn't say because I don't tell people what to do all the time. I didn't want to say, yeah, get rid of that effing Mutt. I never said anything like that. But, and the dog was not like a major issue in a relationship, although that's probably one reason why that never went anywhere, even though we dated for quite a while. Because she had her parents as built-in dog sitters, right? But so that goes on for a while. And then she tells me, what does she do? She goes out and gets another Cocker Spaniel, and that dog was like a clone of the first one. And I guess maybe they're all this because of the breed, the inbred proclivities, or it just picked up on the behavior of the other one, but they're like literal clones of each other, barking inappropriately, biting people, peeing all over the house. And when that happened, it just blew my mind. I was like, what? Huh? But I think she was someone who, still is, who is, very much sort of inculcated into the dog cult, into the Mutt matrix. Like, you have to have a dog. The dogs are just the answer to everything, right? So, but that's the thing is too, those, even, dogs like that can be like a huge pain in the ass, right? So,
yeah, I've read that they weren't good pets for the biting reason, but for the small to mid-sized models, we had a Cocker Spaniel when I was a kid in Texas, and thing constantly humped me, and I hated it. It was like shaking the leg, get it off of me, get it off of me. And it bit me right in the face once. But it was the late 60s, early 70s. The thing was not in the house. Never, ever. It was in the backyard, and it was a pretty big backyard. So, but yeah, it wasn't a good pet.
Yeah, I don't know what people, but but they're advertised as being just, all dogs are advertised as just being, these totally carefree best friends, and it's not true, and I'm just, trying to be able to say, oh, this is more like, hate speech from, the infamous animal uncontrol, but, deal with it, dog people. Dogs are high maintenance. Okay, they are
high energy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and they are prone to offensive behaviors, right? If taking a dump inside the house isn't offensive, like what is? But it's like, just, own it and stop lying about it. It's funny, there was another conversation because, pit bulls came up, but it's like, what? These anti-pit bull dog people are just flaming hypocrites, because they'll lie through their teeth all day about the nature of dogs and then say, oh, well, those pit nutters, they lie about pit bulls being nanny dogs. It's like, they lie all the time about everything. So who the hell are they?
They won't include a Rottweiler in the mix with a pit bull.
But
my Rotties are sweet,
yeah.
Unlike all those pit bulls. My goodness.
Oh, yeah. It's like, if you got kids, it's like, Rots are the real nanny dogs, right? And if you don't get at least 5 to babysit your kids, you're a negligent parent, and your children should be taken away, Oh, and let's ban pit bulls. But yeah, that's the same kind of thing. It's like, the pit nutters, maybe they take it to, they up it a notch, but really they're all all dog nutters are pretty much the same, really. You know, some are worse than others.
Well, that one, I just saw it this morning because I wasn't on the Discord for a day or two. The Mary and Jesus and the
oh yeah,
pit bull and the swaddling. Oh, and then that one that I posted last week with the ultrasound, and there was a pit bull.
There's a pit bull in there.
Her baby.
Yep.
That is complete mental illness. It's got to be in the DSM-6.
Yeah. Well, the one
sure,
with
they've got more things to add.
The one,
yeah, volume 6.
Yeah, I posted the one. Well, actually, to my community page, it was, my Mary Christ Mutt's meme, and that picture with Mary and Joseph and the baby dog. I think that's meant as snark, or I consider it. I posted it as snark, but some of this. But the thing is, though, they're not. Though it's like many of them.
Oh yes. There's even one, like, I think it was during the XL bully when they first tried to ban them in the UK.
Yeah.
There was one. There were a lot of these stupid AI generated memes, just a bunch of XL bullies and they're marching off to heaven and some damn thing. There was one with a pit bull or an XL on a cross like Jesus. That is so offensive to me.
I've seen that too. Yeah.
I'm not ultra religious. I'm all and none, all faith and zero faith, whatever. That is just, what sicko came up with that? That's
I've seen that. Yeah. There's a pit bull and actually, in a sense though too, is that not that I'm but the thing is, that's a way many of them see dogs generally. They say, because I use the term furry Jesus a lot, or four-legged Jehovah, and I say it tongue in cheek, but it's really not a joke, because this is a religion.
Yeah.
It's many of them flat out. I should start keeping snapshots of what some of these people say, but there's dog people flat out that'll tell you the dogs are, in fact, they're divine, supernatural creatures. Flat out. I've had them say that to me. In fact, last decade, I got into it with it was one, with those adept types, all dogs except pits, and they made that claim. And I was like, you know what? I was like, okay, I'm just dealing with a total fucking lunatic. There's somebody's like, yes, dogs, in fact, are divine. They're supernatural creatures. They're vastly superior to us in every conceivable way. Oh, and let's ban pit bulls. It's like, it's like a bait and switch routine, but I've seen that, and even some of the folks, like some of Superstar Riders, acolytes, will say that. But even for many of them, maybe they don't take it to quite that level, but they still idolize the creatures, like it's idolatry. That's where, you probably, for many of the listeners, like idolatry is when the object of worship is a non-deity, like it's a person or a thing, like a sacred rock or something, right? So but they see that, and really, that's the problem. But one reason we have all this stuff too is because, who are we to interfere in the affairs of God? Literally.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's another argument for, well, they're one of God's creatures, so I'm not going to hate on them. And it's but au contraire, they are not, actually.
Yeah, they're creative. Well, they don't think not so much they're God's creatures, but they're God himself.
Yeah, no.
Some of them take it. Hey, there's different narratives there, but that's anyway.
Well, I don't see them as psychically or emotionally deep. And I don't see soulful depth when I look at one or look in their eyes. It's like it's just duh.
Yeah, give me a hamburger.
Yep.
You got any chicken legs on you? Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is they see that and they apply that, to it, but there's no evidence of that. Hey, I wanted to jump off because there were some other topics I want to talk about. One was, the feral dog remediation, and I don't want to look at that. So, particularly in Morocco, I know many countries have, extremely serious feral dog pack problems. I wanted to discuss it in the abstract for a bit and then, deep dive into the situation in Morocco. And Morocco is interesting because we talked about it last time. It's a North African country, about 170,000 square miles. 30 something million people. It's majority Muslim. It's a, developing country, and they're hosting the World Cup, which, again, for folks that don't know, it's a big, soccer match, or, well, it's like, European football, which is like American soccer in 2030, but they have this huge problem with stray dogs everywhere. Stray dogs that are attacking people, spreading rabies and other diseases, causing car accidents, very, sundry, like, human health and human quality of life issues. So they've been talking about, okay, what are they going to do about it, right? There's about 3 million of them in the country, and those numbers are always underestimated. It's probably a lot more than that, but that's the consensus number. So, and 3 million stray dogs in a country that size is a pretty big problem. So that means you've got like one stray dog for every 10 people. So, but what's interesting is I've been looking up, pursuing some due diligence on this, and the you notice, like, a lot of these news articles to discuss this, how this is being presented, right? That it's not like, well, people aren't safe in neighborhoods or children are being mauled or any of that stuff, right? The whole narrative is dominated by these animal rights people, which really means dog rights. Because if it were anything else, like, not that, almost nobody would give a shit, right, about the animals themselves, right? So how is this presented? If you look at this article here, animal rights group calls for Morocco to address stray dog crisis ahead of 2030 World Cup. But what's the first sentence? Okay. A coalition of animal rights, dog rights organizations continues to stress the importance of safeguarding the lives of stray dogs in Morocco. Boom, there it is. What is this really about? It's about protecting dog interests, not human health, not human safety, not human quality of life, not the best interest of anything else alive. That's their top priority, is protecting the best interests, or the perceived best interests, of the dogs, right? Everything else is, if not of no consideration, is secondary, right? That's the top priority. Now, it's interesting too, is the group urges the government to honor international agreements protecting these animals from harmful actions by local authorities. Now, that's interesting. So I guess these feral dog packs are protected by treaty or international law somehow.
Basically, what's going on is the governments have got together across the nation. I've just been ear hustling with you guys.
Hey, what's up, man?
And hey, what's going on? And I saw actually a commercial on YouTube. Hey, Huntress, how you doing? And what they're doing is they're spinning this smear campaign to say that the whole country is a dog house, and the whole country is for the dogs and stray dogs. So everybody comes and takes care of them. They live everywhere. They live in unison with the public. People go and feed them, give them blankets. So that's the campaign that they're trying to spin. They're trying to spin that these stray dogs just wandered into Morocco, and then all of a sudden everybody just took care of them.
Yeah,
like,
well, I mean,
they just mysteriously just popped up.
Yeah, but that's well, I think the thing is that yeah, they're trying to spin it like, well, I guess maybe it is a dog-free country somehow, but that's yeah, but what I find interesting is that there's some kind of international agreements in place here protecting the animals. But part of it too is that I think that this same sort of thing happened in Kuwait and in some other countries, is that I think they're getting a lot of international pressure to, spare the lives of these things, to avoid culling. Because I think most of the people there, I mean, you're right, Mr. J. I'm sure it's spun. It's like, oh yeah, they just love their woogie doogies. They walk the children to school and protect the villages, and everybody there just thinks they're so great. Which I don't think that they do. I think that the average person, the average person there, kind of like an average person anywhere, probably hates it. But they can't really do much. First of all, the dissent is suppressed, right? Because what goes into the news? It's fucking pro-Mutt propaganda BS like this, right? So the dissent is suppressed. Any action taken against them is punished. So they just kind of, they're sort of forced to live with it. I'm sure they probably wouldn't if they didn't have to, but so yeah, you're right. I mean, it's presented, oh yeah, they just love the little pupperinos, and I'm sure like most of them don't, like in real world, but
they're terrorized.
Oh yeah,
and here's another thing, that the one that's really gonna flip all your lid, because I've been kind of like off and on the Discord because I've been dealing with this court case and stuff. I'm starting physical therapy and all that kind of fun stuff. So they're finally getting off their ass. So how they're using this international treaty. Oh my God. So they're using the Save the Whales program for dogs now. That's how they're doing this. This international treaty, there is no international treaty to protect dogs. When did we ever get all together and go hunt dogs down? We never did. This is the treaty for whale hunting. They're using that for dogs now. They've somehow juxtaposed and spun that around and said, well, we could use dogs as this instead of whales.
Yeah.
Like a whale is way more important on this earth than 1 million dogs compared.
Yeah.
You're not going to take a creature from the sea and its protection and put that on the dogs because it's a worldwide thing. Because let's think about China and Russia are still hunting whales. And even in Alaska, they're allowed to hunt a few whales. So whales are different. They're a creature that actually exists on this planet. It's been here for millions of years and evolved. Dogs have not.
Right. Well,
dogs are just something that people believe.
Yeah, we protect whales for the same reason we protect, all kinds of, natural animals, because they're part of the natural environment. So, and yeah, maybe like some harvesting is allowed, but it's restricted typically, right? Kind of like they have like in my state, probably your states also, they have, say, bear hunting, but you can't just shoot all the bears you want.
You have to be a certain season. And if you get caught, they're going to screw you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like fishing. It's like fishing. Yeah. It's like fishing. Yeah. If you don't have a fishing license, you get smashed.
Yeah. Yep. So, but and this is not like, this is actually a man-made problem. It's kind of like saying, well, we shouldn't clean up a toxic waste dump because it's like what? Part of nature? It's like, no, by definition it isn't. But it's interesting that they say that, because you're right, they're using international treaties, but I did this and it says according to the AI, which isn't always right, there is no international treaty that specifically protects stray dogs. But again, I'm sure these nutters they're probably lying and saying, oh yeah, they're protected. It's like, by what? Like, where does it say?
They're protected by them. That's what they're trying to say.
Yep.
They're protected by the school of fish philosophy to protect every mutt.
Yeah. Yeah. And probably a lot of the protection, it's kind of like here, they have a lot of these protections that dogs and dog people get. Some of them are black letter law, but I think often it's like informal policy. So even like, for example, if you have a dog owner breaking a bunch of laws, the policy is to just ignore it, right? Or on the other hand, but if one of those dogs attacks somebody and the victim shoots the dog, well, even though that would normally be considered a legit self-defense scenario, say, oh no, that's animal cruelty. You just wanted Rover to suffer. So you have all this kind of under the table, informal type of, protection and play here. But I thought this was interesting that, they're claiming that there's international agreements to protect, but at least according to the AI,
what are they? Just like with anything, where's your receipts? See, dog culture has never been put on display until we started putting them on display. We're asking them to show and prove. But the only thing they show and prove is opening their mouth and gutting out more bullshit. So it's like, show me the statistic of a nanny dog. Oh, well, that's just what they're called. They're just called nanny dogs. Where's the proof? Well, the proof is they've been called nanny dogs. No, you're not giving me proof. You're just saying the same thing over and over again. You're not giving me any true facts.
Yeah, because they're saying it's like, look, you can't just call these things as they're protected by, I guess, international law. But you say, okay, what law specifically?
What law?
Yeah.
Oh, if they're just protected. Okay, where's the specific law? My bad.
Them NGOs have a lot of power in the developing countries in making the laws, in protecting the strays. It's a huge problem. I suppose it's the same in India or in Morocco as in India or Turkey. The NGOs are they're pretty adamant and militaristic about it.
Well, you know what that is like, I was thinking about, because you're right, because really you talk about what the core, structure of the Mutt matrix are those NGOs that we're talking about. Well, PETA and ASPCA and all these nutter orgs, there are all these nonprofits, and maybe some for-profit money in the background also, but that's really, who's like promoting this stuff. And I had to thought, because I've been thinking about this a lot this week, that, okay, so you have these nutter organizations that are headquartered in the US, maybe Britain or Europe, but they're going into these other countries, and these aren't even the government. It's not even like our State Department leaning on somebody to do something. No, you have basically private organizations headquartered outside of their country. To use Morocco as an example. So they have, again, PETA is a big one because they resist this culling like crazy, even though they euthanize cats and dogs all the time, but whatever. I guess it's only bad when somebody else does it, right? So they have like PETA and ASPCA and, bad rap and all that stuff. And they inject themselves into these, into these other countries, into there, and try to like twist and manipulate their public policies. And I had to thought, you know what that is? There's a word for that. It's sedition, or perhaps maybe subversion is a better word. And I think too is that people need to stand up and say, no, we, the people of wherever, have a right to self-govern and set our own policies. And we don't want these fucking assholes who really are totally unaccountable, right? They have zero accountability coming in here and trying to manipulate our public policies this way. I mean, like I said, it's I think the term is like, let me go to Merriam-Webster. But that's
it's like some kind of a hostile dog government.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you use a word like sedition,
like where they go around the world and try to inject dog as the most important thing on some other country, like water, infrastructure, and food isn't important, but feeding the dogs are.
Yeah. So I think really what's going on is the act of systemic attempt to overthrow, I don't know if they're trying to overthrow the government, or political systems by persons working. Well, it's not really a secret because they're pretty upfront about it. I think the problem is it doesn't get a lot of press, but I think that's the spin that we need to put on it, that these organizations are, not just here in the U.S. also, that these NGOs, these dogs first orgs, should not be dictating public policy anywhere.
No, and there's a lot of money with the donations. I just looked up what animal rights organization is protecting Morocco strays. Morocco Animal Rights Organization, the AI summary. SFT, Street Friends Tangier, founded in 2013, provides sanctuary for stray animals in Tangier, Morocco. They implement the TNVT, treat, neuter, vaccinate, tag method to have a project called Hayat, meaning life, to change the mindset and reduce the stray population. And then there's the International Organization for Animal Protection, not specifically mentioned, is working exclusively in Morocco, but it has global presence and may have projects or partnerships in Morocco, as evident from their snippets about rescuing stray animals in Kurdistan, Iraq, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. And then there's Morocco Animal Aid. It's not mentioning any of the ones we know, or U.S. ones. I guess I didn't ask what.
Yeah, well, some of those may be fronts for foreign organizations, because I know that they do. Like I said, I wanted to talk about India in a separate segment, but some of those groups, like PETA, for example, they've injected themselves into, India's public policy in the matter. And I'm sure there's some of that fuckery going on here also. So some of these other groups may just be, front groups or local chapters for some of these international NGOs. But if you dig into those organizations, they're like I said, they're probably just front groups for one of these other. They're probably somehow affiliated. That would be my expectation.
With India, I think they're kind of appealing to the Hindu religion a little bit. So that makes it a little different than these other countries, kind of.
Yep.
Because the other countries that have that problem are, Muslim, and but they don't have the whole same, the sacred cow and all that stuff that the Hindu, I think they're kind of hijacking the religion a little bit in India, but not in Morocco or Turkey.
I wanted to add to that, Huntress, what you're saying, and what you're saying, Animal on Control. It is a little bit of all. Let's just play the game correctly here. When these attacks are made for any social or social economical strike, it's done on all angles. So why would we not expect them to use the local culture's religion as a way to protect the dogs? It just looks a little too coincidental. if you look at it, like the way they have that problem in India, like you said, Huntress, they have a lot of problems where, you know, the Hindu religion doesn't allow them to hurt animals, but the animals, the so-called animals, are hurting the population. They're hurting your future. They're hurting everybody. So it's not just a protection of the dog, it's a protection of your own life. And that's the problem. And so when you look at it from another point of view, it is a political attack because these lobbyists come in there and they change the laws of the local government that didn't protect dogs before, now protecting dogs. So it's all about the loving and protection and the deification of these dogs to make sure that they're always around.
Yep. Yeah, well, they definitely idolize the things. That's for sure. Yeah, and you're right too. Is they're going to, you know, twist whatever the prevailing ideology is to try to protect them. Kind of like you were talking about, like, well, if you want to like ban pit bulls, what's one of the well, of course they come out of the gratuitous accusations of like Nazism and racism and bigotry, and they say, well, it's unconstitutional. But what's interesting is like those arguments, and those are things that resonate with a lot of people, but those arguments only come out when somebody's trying to restrict dogs, right? If you try to restrain any other animal, like if you want to cull feral hogs or coyotes even, it's like, oh, okay. You know, it's only a problem when it's a dog. You know, and yeah, you're right. They'll at least try to subvert whatever the, you know, prevailing regime is to their advantage. They do, yeah, they do it all the time.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm going to start another share.
Yeah.
I like the way. So this is from the Morocco subreddit, and so here's what happened. It said, this is posted 8 months ago. Azul and salam, my friends. Yesterday morning, a group of our friends traveling from Germany, US, and Egypt witnessed the indiscriminate slaughter of stray dogs in Emin Turga. They had been staying in vans at the car park. I guess, well, the people had. It was a group of about 6 dogs, including 3 puppies. All very friendly and no trouble. Well, again, they are until they're not. A man arrived in the morning while they were having coffee and shot them with a shotgun in front of the tourists. The death was not instant and included a lot of crying and one of the puppies being wounded and limping around before being hit with a bat. The dogs then loaded into a truck that was already filled with dead dogs. I'm not sure what is the need for such barbarism and to do this in front of people without giving them any warning. All the group now have a bad image of Morocco, has overshadowed many great things about the country. They're leaving next week and will not be returning back to Morocco. What was witnessed seems unnecessarily cruel and callous. It's also arguable, doesn't solve the problem and damages tourism in this example. What can be done to lodge a complaint? Well, the thing about this is, I'll make the point too, is because, you know, I do some hunting and some varminting, and you want to put the animal down like as quickly and efficiently as possible, right? You want good shot placement that's just gonna basically just put them down, right? You don't go around like, you know, shooting legs off and stuff like that. Or if you do, you immediately follow up shot with something lethal, right? You have to. There's an ethos here, and it seems like the person doing the culling wasn't like following those best, you know, those ethical best practices. So I can kind of see there's kind of a point being made here. But if this goes on and this whole thread kicks off, so you see I'm on another page now. Can you see this? Or maybe I'll just read it, but it says, okay, so this is not going to be received well, but Morocco is a poor country with a high unemployment rate, extremely limited social welfare. there's not exactly a pile of unused cash to create humane catch and release programs for stray dogs, let alone help the millions of people in need. So here's what's interesting. This is the uncomfortable truth if you're facing here. Poverty makes people do things that people from wealthy countries would consider unimaginable. So yeah, like the plight of these poor, stray pupperinos is a first world problem, right? It's probably mostly, middle class and up Americans and Europeans that live in safety, that are like, oh, you can't shoot the poor little puppers, the little fur babies. That's just wrong, right? But the thing is that they're not accountable for one thing. And those are the kind of people that staff these NGOs that are, fighting this stuff. They're not accountable. So it's like it's not their kids that are being torn up on the way to school. If it were, they might feel different. But so you say that slaughter is indiscriminate. The unfortunate truth is they are stray dogs. They do carry, spread disease, procreate, present safety issues, and so on, right? Just like the same way rabbits and deer are culled during times of overbreeding to protect local ecosystems. Stray dog populations need to manage to ensure that people aren't exposed to disease, that children are safe, etc. But even more so, it's like, rabbit and deer populations get culled, but that's wildlife management. These stray dogs are not wildlife. Like if they were extinct, there would be nothing but upside to it. Right, because you're not screwing with the natural environment by putting these things down. Like you brought up, like Mr. J, you brought up like the whales, and we were talking about, hunting and so forth. It's not really a question of managing it. It's a question of, eradication, of elimination. I was going back to feral hogs. I actually did a monologue on feral hogs a while back and what they're doing in Florida and other southern states. And I got kind of clued into that back when I was a hike leader, and I was I was in a big meeting because some of these large, forest properties, the various interested parties have these big management meetings, and I would represent my organization in the meeting. And there's one property, about a 10,000 acre forest property near here. And the wildlife management people, they were talking about, hunting on the property and so forth. But he said that the hogs are not like deer or any other like animal that's natural to the environment. The hogs are invasive. So we're not trying to manage the hog population. We want to kill as many as we possibly can. That's what we're trying to do here. As funny as them who actually talk, is like told him, it's like, I got some precision rifles and I do some target shooting. He's like, dude, like totally come out, like the more you shoot, the better. So that is probably a closer analog to the stray dog problem than a natural animal like rabbits or deer or whatever, right? Too, as in this person goes on, like, moralizing does not fix poverty, says you're not wrong at all. Those dogs should not have been slaughtered in such a violent way. So there's like maybe something to be said for that, right? But in an ideal world, we have a much more symbiotic relationship with animals and the environment than we do today. But again, these are not natural animals. They're not wildlife. Okay, so we don't live in an ideal world and so forth. And here's I love this response because I talked about this kind of thing last time or the time before, is whenever you bring up, it's like, okay, we need to do something about whatever mutt problem is indicated. It's murder, mutt proliferation, barking, dog at large, dog crap everywhere, dogs in restaurants. one of the big like counter arguments they come up with, and it's BS, right, is they always say, well, we can't do that because it's too expensive. Now, of course, they have plenty of money to invest, for the dog, right? But there's never any money to protect us from it somehow. So this is what's interesting is while this is somewhat true, using this as an excuse for whatever reason is becoming more and more tiring. Well, but it is true, right? I love this one. Those bullets used for the dogs probably cost more than what a rabies shot might be. Wrong. I looked that up.
Hold on, let me add to that fact, Bill. You know what? You made the most important point ever made. There is never any money to pick up the dogs, but there's always money to support the dogs. That is very, very powerful because we need to really break that down. Because you're right, there's all these states have organizations to protect, feed, and house dogs, but nothing to control them. That is very disgusting.
Yeah, because there's always money because they say things like, well, that's what they say. So you say, okay, we need to get the stray dogs off the street. And they say, well, that's too expensive. But I love this one because they already deleted their user ID. So I like what they say. The bullets used for the dogs probably cost more than what a rabies shot might be. Yeah. So the truth is that is seen as the easiest solution, right? Well, it's not just a rabies shot because what they propose is a TNR. It's trap, neuter, release. So you bait, a humane trap. Yeah, I know you put a dirty diaper in there, right? Something that Fido really loves. So the dog walks in, they're trapped. It's taken back to a facility where it's, surgically sterilized. It's vaccinated against rabies and perhaps other disease. And then when it recovers, they take it back where it was caught and let it go. Now, there's a ton of problems with that. One is, you're talking about a potentially dangerous animal, right? You don't do that, right? Culling. So that's a fail. But I think even just the whole TNR, paradigm is a fail. You got to think of the logistics of that. That country has 3 million feral dogs. Even just do half of them. That's 1.5 million. Where are you going to get all the resources to do all that? Like, where are you going to get the manpower, the expertise? Like, you need a licensed veterinarian to do the surgery, all the drugs, like the anesthesia and the vaccinations and antibiotics and the other drugs. You need vehicles and equipment, fuel, housing facilities.
Yeah. So
you've got
what's killing me is, how will you go to another country who has problems on the outside looking in and tell them how to fix it if you don't know what's going on?
Well, I think the thing is, what's ironic is they're claiming that what I just described is somehow cheaper and easier than just shooting them. And how can it be, right? I mean, even though that would be a huge effort also, but we've gone through the problem with these feral dog packs is that you're not going to TNR all of them, right? And the thing is, in the pack size is still going to grow because there's still going to be puppies. There's still going to be lost dogs and abandoned dogs that are, adding to these pack sizes. So probably best case, the rate of increase goes down. So you could argue it's better than doing nothing. I don't see how how that would work logistically. It's just impossible. But it was interesting. It was talking about how much. Let me drop that share. And let's see. Stop sharing. Much does a rabies vaccine cost for dogs? Let's see. So $40 to $75 per dose plus annual boosters because the immunity wears off, right? So you need 3 million doses every year, or at least every few years. That's provided you even get them all, right? So then, of course, what does a spay for dogs cost? So $250 to $525. So low cost.
Hold on. So they want you to spend all this money per dog when the country is struggling to feed its people. See, This is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the NGOs come in. The government doesn't have enough money. The municipality can't address it, right? So they do rely on the NGOs and the donations to them and the manpower of them to.
Yeah, but they don't have.
But it doesn't solve any problems that people have. Not to cut you off, that the people have there: starvation, lack of infrastructure, no homes. So we're going to come up with all this money to help the dogs, but not the people that they're attacking.
Well, and that's right. It's always the stray dog problems in the developing countries are in the poor areas. They might have rich, virtue signaling dog feeders. They won't feed it inside their gated, posh community. They'll go outside to the poor streets and do it. And it's the poor people's and the grandpas and the grandmas and the children of the poor that have to, live with the consequences of this virtue signaling by these do-gooders.
There's healthy maulers running around, freeloading, living off the land.
Though, it's not just a question of money, though, because where do you get all the manpower and the technical expertise for this? Where are they going to fly in, create just an army of vets, to veterinarians to do this? Think about it. It's just our capacity, even in a country like ours with a lot of capital, we have limited capacity to do things, right? We can't just build. I don't know. We couldn't build high-speed rail from New York to San Francisco in 2 weeks, no matter how much money we threw at it. Something like that's possible, or put a man on Neptune next year. We don't have it. It's not even a question of money. It's we don't have the capital, we don't have the manpower, we don't have the technical expertise at any given time. It's just beyond our capacity to produce those things. So the thing is, you have this. This would require just a massive mobilization. And it would also drive costs up, because what happens is if they say, okay, we're going to dump billions of dollars into this, what does that do? Well, that raises the cost of these things. So it's okay, we need another 3 million doses of rabies vax, right? That on top of what we normally produce, right? So it's okay, we'll just throw a bunch of money at it, but that's just going to cause the price to go up, right? So that's a whole problem with this. You run into, basic economic issues with this. You can't just conjure all these resources out of thin air, regardless of how much money you have. So I think what they're proposing really is practically impossible. To do it in a way that would actually be effective, to bring the numbers down significantly. If they just if they had 3,000 of them, you could probably pull it off. But 3 million, which is probably an underestimate, I don't see it happening, regardless of how much money is put into it. And
also, I'm just going to interject real quick, and to add to that, if you look at it, the policies like Jerry's Kids, that Sally's Kids, all those programs are no longer there. They're only for dogs now. So if you notice that all these fundraisers aren't for St. Jude's or cancer research for children, no, it's only for dogs. And I've seen one for international dogs too. You can donate money to protect dogs around the world. But what's going on with these children? Why aren't these, what did you call them, Huntress, the NGOs or whatever?
Yeah, the
the
NGOs.
Yeah,
non-governmental
whatever. They're
organizations.
not going into these. Yeah, they're not going in these countries and saving the children. No, they're fucking sending in ships and planes to go help dogs.
Yeah, and you know what I was thinking about the whole thing with 3 million or 60 million or whatever. What does that scenario look like if you're just going to say, we'll leave 5 on the street? Okay, so that's whatever, 2 million or 59 million, whatever. What would that look like? What would that entail? What would that actually entail? You just take them to this big, like, kind of a mine shaft thing and incinerate. I mean, how could they carry that out? Seriously, I've thought about that a lot. How would you actually, if you were saying, fine, let's just do this, let's get this crap, let's clean the streets, what would that look like?
Yeah, well, that would be a massive mobilization also. But I guess the point I was making is because you've got, I guess, a couple of approaches on the table. You've got this TNR approach, which, again, like I said, it involves like all kinds of like capital and technical expertise and manpower and equipment and blah, 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 blah. That probably doesn't even really exist in the system, right? Or you could just shoot them. And you're right. It's like, yeah, you'd have to even just like culling them. That's a massive effort also. But I think that that's way less than this TNR approach, right? Because it's a lot. And the interesting is that maybe I'll post those images into this video later when I do some editing on this. But I guess the point is like, yeah, okay, if a rabies vax costs $50, well, what does a round of 223 cost, right? So I was looking at this. This is like my Natchez shooting. So this is like your one-stop shop for all your zombie apocalypse needs. So if you look at, let's go to rifle ammo. Now looking, actually, there's some pretty good deals. So here you got, and actually my Savage 110 shoots this stuff really well. Sometimes, precision rifles can be kind of finicky about obviously you need the right caliber, but even, the bullet weight and shape and stuff like that. So this stuff, it's like, okay, so you get 1,000 round case for $430. That's not bad, even this stuff, and this is like, I guess, medium quality or kind of, this is like budget. This stuff, this Hornady, this 55 grain soft point. I should check to see if I have any of this stuff, but this would be a really good varmint round. So it's like, you can see this stuff. Of course, then you do that. You need to shoot them, put them in trucks, take them to, disposal, like an incinerator or whatever, and, have them, properly disposed of. But it was funny that one person was claiming that the rifle ammo costs more than the rabies shots. It's like, yeah, no. So, and look, we got all these good deals. See, look, they're discounting and everything. So, but yeah, I mean, that's a big deal also. I know, like on the Discord the other day, I don't know if you two picked up on it, but we're saying it's like, maybe they could, have like these, safari type vacations where, you go to these countries and
I'm down.
Yeah, it's like you go to these countries and just because they like too, they need international help. It's like I'll help out the Moroccans.
I'll help. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
it's like
now,
mercenaries, man.
Yeah, let me. Would I be a bad
dog mercenaries?
Yeah,
dog eliminating mercenaries.
Yeah, we'll be like one of those like NGOs. Like, what's one of those PMCs, like private military contractors, like what's an executive outcomes. They go into they get hired by governments to like rescue hostages and stuff. But yeah, we could come up with that. And, it doesn't need to cost the Moroccans anything. Like I was looking at this one kind of on the upper left here, this Hornady. That's really high quality stuff. That's a really good deal. After I get off this call, I'm going to buy some. But in any case, yeah, I'm perfectly willing. I'll go. I'll pay all my own expenses. They have to do anything, right? So, except not put me in jail. That's all I'm asking. We could all go, and I've got spare rifles. I could spot you one. But now, let me ask you something though. Would I be a bad person if I were to enjoy a vacation like that too much, or?
Nope. I think it's
no,
R&R.
I would like it.
One quick point, though, I wanted to add to that. Now, they always talk about these programs that they have. Well, statistically speaking, your programs suck ass because they don't work. I don't care what you guys say. It doesn't work in India. It doesn't work here. It doesn't work there. When are they ever going to get that school of fish philosophy out of their heads? You cannot go around telling people how to run shit that doesn't work anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the deal. They don't address it. Like if they were going to TNR, they don't even round up 100,
Thank you.
much less 500,000 or whatever they would need to round up to vaccinate and to neuter, spay, whatever. They don't do it at the scale that it needs done.
Well, exactly.
So it almost seems like it's a vaccine, a pharma money making scheme, because there is that rumor with regular dog and cat vaccinations in the United States that it's kind of a racket, and they make them, for a penny on the dollar. And
well, they started with the dogs, and they started with the humans. Oh, let's get your dog vaccinated. Get your dog vaccinated against fleas and all this other shit. Then all of a sudden, oh, you know what? Everybody can go get the flu vaccine because it stops you from getting sick. It's like they're training us through the dogs.
The thing is, though, that, rabies is a terrifying disease, and it does vector from dogs to humans. And the vaccines, my understanding is they are proven effective because they've been around forever, and I understand like some people have skepticism about some vaccines, but the rabies vaccines are proven effective. They've been around for a long time, and it's not something you want to screw around with, because if you're infected and you don't get treated, you die. It's 100% fatal. So, and there are a lot of, rabies vectors. But the thing is, but even if you say, okay, the vaccines are effective, how do you vaccinate them all? Like, okay, because these are just like loose animals that are running around everywhere. They're not house pets. So, like, how do you do that? It's not just that, but they want to, spay and neuter them also. So that's something that, they have to, tranquilize the dog, bring it back to, a vet hospital for the surgery and the recovery and everything. Like, they're going to do that 3 million times. Like you said, Huntress, that was the word I was looking for earlier and didn't think of. Nobody has the capital or the wherewithal to do it at the scale necessary. It's just not going to happen. I don't see how it can.
Well, there is a way. Everyone's going to hate me if I say it, but all they got to do is get like 5 toddlers and dress them up like doctors and put them to these areas, and the dogs will come to them like magnets.
Oh my God. Yeah. But yeah, I just, it's just, and the thing is that, these doggy rights organizations are straight up seditious. I don't know if these countries have a sedition act, but if they don't, maybe they should pass some, because that's what they're doing is, they're preventing they're basically forcibly preventing the problem from being solved. So it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And like you said, you know, Mr. J, it's like they never show results. I mean, there's like a handful of cases where I think the Netherlands or Denmark supposedly has 0 stray dogs. But I mean, if they didn't really have any to begin with, then, you know, again, if, like I said, if they had 3,000 of these things, yeah, maybe the TNR would work, maybe, or they could, you know, catch them and maybe get them adopted out. But like 3 million, that's an intractable problem, and I don't see them putting a dent in it any way other than some kind of mass culling.
Now, what they just need to do is just leave a whole lot of good food out there for them, and they will come there and eat it and drop off. I mean, that is the smartest way. They're not that smart. They're not like cats. They aren't like any other creature that will actually not just take anything from anyone. If you just leave piles of food around that is tainted, they will take themselves out. It's a very simple solution.
Well, yeah,
But
like
if
basically
got their
use
heads out of their asses
like use
and stop
poison.
deifying, they do it.
Yeah, poison them like we do rats and mice and so forth.
Yeah, knock them out. And I guarantee you that would be, you know, running around and beating them with bats. Because you know what, quite honestly, what's everybody going to see? They're going to see that as racism. They're going to see that as gentrification, but they're dogs. So there's no racism and there's no gentrification for something that we created. It's a man-made problem and is a man-made solution that needs to take care of them.
Yep.
Yeah, and that whole thing with, you know, the whimpering, crying dog. It was one of Chef's when I had the old YouTube account. She put something up about a bunch of whining dogs after they got shot or whatever, and you know, she pinned my comment. I said something like, you know, people, you know, lose their shit when they hear these, you know, stuff. But I said, what we're missing is the screams of the person that they just murdered.
Yep.
And those would be blood curdling, and that would be an ugly sound, and that would haunt. I don't know if it would affect, you know, nutters, but, you know, we hear the yelping and the whining and stuff, but we don't hear the screams of these people that died in the hand.
Good point. What about when the video of Jacqueline Duran came out and she's in there laying on the floor crying and come help me, please. I don't know where the dogs are. I don't know where they are. I just hear them. And every time they're resource guarding, they're protecting her because they want to put her down, and they're stopping anybody from giving her any assistance. But, you know, every time they go and posture the first responders, they go back and give her a couple more nips. You know, why don't they play that video on loop?
Yeah.
Yeah, and why didn't they shoot? Why didn't they shoot those 2 dogs?
Why didn't they shoot them? That's the biggest thing. Why didn't they?
Yeah.
They sat there with
because
poles.
if I were her, I'd be going, "Hey, hello, lying here," you know.
Yeah, that
was
that was like a clear case of negligence. I think the police just stood around outside for, I think it was over a half hour while the dogs just mauled her. It's like, what the hell is going on there? I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, they could have blasted in SWAT, you know. I don't know if it was because it was a rich neighborhood or the doctor. It's a famous or, you know, popular doctor here, and we don't want to shoot his mutts, or I don't know what it was, but
maybe that is, yeah, maybe it was the dog owner. They're like, okay, this is somebody we don't want to piss off. But I think too is if it was a righteous shoot, like that's it, and they didn't do it. So I guess, yeah, they're waiting for, you know, animal control to come, but, you know, yeah, they're probably like dogs first. There's some dogs first nuttery and play there. But going back to what, you know, you were saying was, yeah, they never show, because the thing is that the voices, those voices, like the voices of the victims, are suppressed. they're repressed because, and even a lot of the victims, provided they survive or witnesses, don't want to say anything because speaking out against the furry Jesus is so politically incorrect. The politically correct thing, or the popular narrative, is that we're back on is crap like this, right? You got whatever it is. It's like, okay, top priority is protect the animals in variety in lots of ways and lots of levels. That this needs to stop being the top priority. Like a lot of times I'll rag on like Dog Bite Prevention Week, which should be called Dog Bite Promotion Week, because the whole thing is a sham. But even if you read that, like if you look at what's posted about it, it's like it starts off with a lot of pro-dog propaganda. It's like dogs are man's best friend, and dogs give unconditional love, and dogs are the best carefree best friend you'll ever have, and blah, 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 blah. And then like 3 paragraphs down, they're like, well, we do have an issue with dog bites. But really, it's how they start out is what really matters. It's like you always get the most important thing out of the way first. So what's being expressed here is that the top priority is protecting the animals. That's the priority.
Bill, you are hitting them out the park today. That's another thing. It's always the priority of the dog. Like they always I remember having conversations with nutters, and all they would say is I would bring up statistics about how dangerous they are. And but you know what? My dog, he used to love me so much. Or my dog, they always, no matter how bad the scenario is, they'll always find that one little sliver of good moment and put that forth. There'll be a million different things, but 1% of that dog licked me and I thought it was a kiss. So that's all that mattered.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and the other thing with the Dog Bite Prevention Week or whatever that I've noticed is they're talking about the family dog that might occasionally nip, because the things are, it's like, don't get near the food bowl. That kind of stuff, like how to keep your normal pet, not dogs of war, pit bulls and all that. They're just talking about, don't let your Cocker Spaniel bite your kid. But there needs to be a dog mauling awareness week too, because that's 2 different things, and I can kind of understand. But then they just equate it, and they just, okay, yeah, we're taking
that's
care
what
of
it is it's
issue by doing that.
Well, like I said, the whole thing is a sham, and it's probably another example of how it's probably just the controlled opposition, where it's like, okay, but really, what is the purpose of Dog Bite Prevention Week? It's not to prevent. And really, where do you draw the line between a bite and a mauling? Because a single bite can be a pretty significant injury. We were talking about those Caucasian cattle dogs or whatever. They got a bite strength of like 750 pounds. They'll just take one, boom, they'll take your arm right off. But the thing is, you see how it's presented is kind of like this, where they put what's most important front and center. And that's the best interest of the dogs, or in a case of Dog Bite Prevention Week, promoting dog propaganda. I said, imagine like we had a lung cancer prevention week, right? And where does it start? So that seems interesting. Let me look into that. So the first sentence is, tobacco smoking is a very pleasurable and glamorous activity enjoyed by many. Right, that's like the preamble. So it's like, okay, what does that tell you? That's been captured by tobacco lobby or some kind of pro-smoking interest, right? Like this is really not about lung health. And that's what that's about, is all this stuff supposedly saying, okay, we need to do something about these feral dog packs because it's a profound public health, public safety, human quality of life, and so forth issue. But they start off with this crap. It's like, oh, make sure you adhere to these, I don't know, made up international agreements to protect these things. That's what's important, not any of that other stuff.
Yeah, I'm sick of the saturation of it. It's just everywhere. It's like a religious fervor.
Yep.
To that point, but in the crusade days where you better do this or you're out, we'll burn you at the stake or whatever. That's almost the degree of this fervor.
That's
gross.
pretty.
Oh yeah, I just changed the share. Yeah, I wanted to segue. He was talking about like, there's like, like Mr. J, you brought up like, poisoning him. They could try that too. Was like, but I always prefer like Rule 223 or 308 because it's a lot more, precise. So I wanted to like, maybe it could, like I said, cross this over with some of my other interests. So this is my Ruger Scout rifle and 308 Winchester. And actually, I have multiple rifles like this, but what this features is it's shortest legal barrel, shortest legal overall length. And I've taken out some hogs with this. And so I just wanted to talk about some of these. So, if you have a feral dog problem, here's a solution. Let me see if I can go to some of these other pictures. Yeah, there it is on the floor. So what I have on it is this scope. It's a long eye relief scope. It's mounted forward. So that gives you faster acquisition. You can keep both eyes open while you're aiming it. And here it's got a 5-round detachable mag inserted. A lot of people talk about, getting into the firearm space. And there's, some advantages to something like this because it basically something like this is legal almost everywhere, right? It's not a handgun.
Reach out and touch someone?
Sorry? Reach out and touch
I was
someone?
just being a brat. I said reach out and touch someone.
It'll do that. Oh, it'll definitely do that. And the thing is, it's a compromise. Like it's not quite as accurate as some, like it's not really a precision rifle. Although I do have some range results here. Yeah, there it is on the range also. Oh wait, I want to go back. Scroll back. Yeah, so that is just like shooting, not even off the bench, just off the shoulder. So I got this like Bigfoot target or whatever. So I took him out. Shooting off the bench, I think this was my best group that day. So I believe this is at 50 yards, but this is less than an inch at 50 yards. So I'm probably shooting. You get into rifle shooting, you hear the term MOA or minute of angle. A minute of angle is 1 inch at 100 yards, or 2 inches at 200 yards, or a half inch at 50 yards. So,
nice groupings.
Yeah, well, I cherry pick.
Yeah.
But this is right off, like shooting, like off the supported like this. If you just shoot off the shoulder, you get a result like this, which actually isn't bad because this target's only like 15 inches tall or whatever. You can see, I took him out. So, something like that probably is good if you have a varmint issue. They used to sell these. You can still buy them in 308. I think right now the only calibers available, you still get 308. You get a 350 Legend or a 450 Bushmaster. But like I said, it shoots good enough because a lot of times your precision rifles are a lot longer. They're perhaps heavier. The other thing that's good about this is that it's got a stainless steel Mauser action. So it's very, very robust. It's like way overbuilt. So there's a kind of thing that'll last for, a gun like this could last for centuries, literally.
How's the trigger pull?
It's okay. It's not quite as good as, like, say, my Savage 16, but it's good enough. right? It's not for the 500-yard shot. So, like it's not bad. It's okay for a gun like this. Where, it's a compromise gun. So,
Gotcha.
it's not a bad trigger, but I don't know if it's not quite as good as, say, like you'd get on a Remington 700 or maybe one of the Savage rifles. So,
because they're a little bit more smoother. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah, and you could probably adjust it some too. Like I said, it's not it is a little bit picky. And actually it's not super picky about the ammo. I think I use typically the 168 grain bow tails. Shoot the best in this and in my other 308 rifles also. So you stock up on that. So as you can get different results, but it's not too picky with the ammo, even like the cheap, like the bulk stuff that, it shoots.
But you got to be particular because a lot of those guns, like I've fired them before, they have a sweet spot. Yep. And like you said, if you change one little thing off, it's going to be really finicky.
Yep.
It's not going to like it.
This one isn't too bad because you're right. Like, well, my Remington 700, which I don't have anymore, my Savage 11, the Remington was very, very picky. Very.
Yeah, Remingtons are very picky. So are Borellis.
Yeah, but but the thing was, weird. You're right. Once you hit that sweet spot, it's like really sweet. That's the thing. This is a little. This can be a little bit picky, but clearly it shoots some ammo types better than others, but still it's not that picky. It's like semi-picky, if that makes any sense, which is, one good thing about it. So if you can't get like the ideal stuff, the other stuff is like, okay, because again, it's not, it's not a 500-yard gun, but, if you got some hogs on the back 40 or, need to do some deletion, it's a fun gun to shoot too. It comes with detachable magazines and 3 to 10 rounds. It's a proprietary magazine, but that's the other thing. You get a couple of spare mags and you're good to go. So I thought I'd share that.
Yeah, I saw that with the grouping. I thought that was dope. I was going to ask you if it was a clip. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this was, I think it looks like, usually I just shoot groups of 3. This looks like 4.
That looks like remember. 4, yeah.
So it looks like, because if you look where
actually, it looks like 5.
Maybe it was 5, because
because there's a double on the right.
Yeah, because I got one on the left. There's a figure 8 on the left. Then there's one in the middle, and this might be 2 also. Yeah, might
that is 2. You doubled up. Yeah, you hit the sweet spot and you hit it again.
Yeah. So,
it's been about 40 or 50 years since I've shot guns. My stepdad took us out. We had a BB rifle and a 38 and some things. Just can shooting. I was a pretty good shot. And then when I hung out with military LEOs, we would go out shooting too. And I was a pretty good shot. So there's some untapped talent here.
Knock yourself out. And these guns are like I said, everything's a study in compromise, right? So like you could say, well, why go for this when you could just get one and say semi-auto like an AR-10 or an M1A? And it's a good point to make, but first of all, there's typically more restrictions on those things, for one thing. They also have a way more moving parts, like they're more maintenance, more prone to break and so forth. So there's that to consider. Like this would be a good, like if I was going to be like transported to some planet, like one-way trip, and I'd like no clue what was there, I would bring this. Because like I said, that's a kind of environment where some of those other firearms, you really need more, infrastructure, if that makes any sense. And like I said, it's legal. Like if you live in like our European friends, my understanding is you can get things like this. You might not be able to get it with a detachable mag. You maybe just have to use it as a top loader, but still. And the other thing it's there is like 308. Well, it's not the most powerful round out there, but I've shot hogs with this. You talk about like shit running around screaming. It's like, man, they just drop, boom, done, right? They go down and they don't get up. So there's that advantage also. So yeah, I just thought I'd talk about that because it comes up a lot. Like people think, well, what could I get? When I get one of these. Now these are pretty expensive. I think now, I think they're retailing for over $1,000.
That's usually typical. So quick question on that. When you're talking about round capacity, so when it comes to penetration, is it a straight penetration or does the bullet tumble? Why it causes
it depends on the a lot of it depends on the bullet type, probably like
because a tumbling bullet is way more dangerous than a straight one.
Yeah, I don't think that, like a lot of handgun rounds, like 9mm, if you just have a full metal jacket, you'll just drill a hole through whatever you're shooting at. These break up because, with the hogs that when I was shooting, it was 168 grain bow tail hollow points. And they break up. So what you get is like typically you get multiple, wound channels, right? So it's almost like you're shooting it multiple times. A lot of the advantage is that they hit really hard, like way harder than like a handgun round would. And I believe what happens is it's really they go into shock instantly because all those like little blood vessels just burst, from the, the impact. It's kind of like you shoot a jug of water with something like this. There's just water like spraying everywhere. It just causes it to explode. So, but a lot of it is a bullet type. Like, I wouldn't hunt something like with a full metal jacket round. Yeah, I definitely use something frangible like a hollow point or a saw point. And that'll do that. The bullet will break up and tumble inside the body, creating actually like additional wound channels. So they're very, very deadly though. But yeah, with like I don't know, if I shot him with a full metal jacket, would it just blow a hole right through him? I don't know because I haven't tried that. But
tried it, yeah.
Well, that's like what I know of hunting is the certain gun or bullets that you want to use because you don't want to destroy your food by using the wrong bullet that puts the wrong wound or spreads out, or there's shrapnel all over inside the animal, and then even more so with like bird, the fowl hunting.
Or shot, yeah.
It has, you don't want this master blaster thing, or you don't really have a bird to eat. So I'm not completely clueless on guns, but it's been a long time. All I have is my oh shoot, what is it? Oh, the Glock BB gun that looks like a real gun. I mean, it just looks like a real it's like I pulled it out, showed a friend, and it's like, whoa, oh my god, whoa. And it's like it's BB gun. It's got pellets, the little golden pellets, but so that's about all I can offer to the gun.
Probably if you're shooting, like if you're hunting or varminting or whatever, you want to use something that's like like I said, a hollow point or a saw point or something that will, maybe not like necessarily shatter, but will expand out and perhaps break up into multiple pieces, right? Because then you get more, just more damage to what it hits as opposed to like a full metal jacket round that may just, like I said, just drill a hole through it because, you want to inflict an injury that's, immediately, fatal or incapacitating. So, like I said, it's a pretty good, but it's a good compromise gun. There's another option. Maybe I'll feature it next time because they used to make these in .223 caliber. They don't anymore. And I have another gun I have. It's very similar to this. It's called a Mossberg. Mossberg makes it. They call it a MVP. And it's kind of like that. It's got this, they call this a scout rifle concept. Shortest legal barrel, shortest legal overall length. And that comes in multiple calibers also. They're a little cheaper. And well, actually, probably like those are probably retailing for like 600, maybe 650. And as it's not quite as nice, it's not. It's a good gun, it's a very good gun, but it's not necessarily an heirloom piece like this is. Maybe I'll feature that, next time. So I have an MVP in .223 caliber that strictly I just use as a range gun, but that would be, if you had like, medium-sized varmints, like 50 to 80 pounds, that would be a good gun. And I could use some of that ammo we were looking at on the website just now. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that. Some folks might find it interesting.
I have a question.
Sure.
The cops, what are they carrying? 9 millimeters or whatever?
Probably.
Why does it take 5, 6 shots sometimes to put down a pit bull? And would it be the same with these rifles?
Well, the thing is like, yeah, you hear that, or they say, yeah, the dog was shot 13 times or whatever. And I'd like to, maybe the gun was fired 13 times.
Okay.
Did they actually hit anything? So, because again,
that one, especially the one where
best description.
There's 2 dogs guarding that poor 70-year-old woman on the porch, and it looked like the guy hit it the four times, and then it kept running, and then he hit it the 5th time, and it kind of went Barr! But then it was still like, well, convulsing around and stuff. It's like,
they're pretty.
What kind of gun do you need?
Handgun. Well, that's the thing is like, that's why, you hunt with something like that, because those rifle rounds have way more energy in them than handgun rounds. Like if you look at, you go to, I could maybe do that real quick. If we go to, let me share again.
Well, that's it. Also, you got a juiced up pit bull. They're all muscle. A dog with all muscle. I remember hearing a friend of a friend said he went to prison and he asked another prisoner why they always work out so much. And he goes, the reason why we work out so much is not so we can get out to get women. It's like when you're in here in a fight and you get cut, muscle is harder to cut than fat. So if you think about that philosophy, you're shooting a juiced up dog that's nothing but muscle and it's, hulking around, you're popping it with rounds. You're not really hurting that thing. It's almost like a bee sting.
Off of it.
Yeah,
it's probably like super Mutt, crypto, which I really want to talk about that. James Gunn is an asshole. He went to the pound and got a dog. And so he decided to put that dog in the movie to give dogs more fucking popularity. It's based off a dog he rescued, stupid ass.
Well, the thing is, to answer the question is, all guns are not created equal. So your rifle rounds, your full power rounds have way more energy in them than your typical handgun round. Like even a hot load, like say a 357 Magnum, and it's not the end all of ballistics, but they measure like in foot-pounds of energy. So you take, like, say, a 3, which is a pretty effective self-defense round. I mean, a 3 that has more energy in it typically than, say, like a 9 millimeter. Although actually there is some overlap there. I think of like the Venn diagram where you have, overlapping, circles. But that's why they use those kind of rifles for hunting, because a full power, like, so let's say a 357, let's say, give or take, it has, say, 600 foot-pounds of energy, which is a lot for a handgun. A 243 Winchester will have like 1900. So that's got like 3 times, bam, the smack of a 357 Magnum. And I'm telling you, like when I shoot these hogs, center of body mass with that, what I just showed, or even with a 243 Winchester, which actually is a weaker round than a 308, they just go down. Actually, the biggest hog I ever shot, it was in excess of 330 pounds. And we know that because the scale, that's what it pegged at. It couldn't read any higher than that. One round of 243 Winchester dropped him like a bag of dirt. And like I said, what's important is shot placement. Like if I'd shot him in the ear, it wouldn't have done much. So, and that's the thing is you hear that, it's like particularly in a defensive situation, you know, somebody's panicking, they're probably not aiming the gun too well. So, they also like the, you know, the ammunition type matters. So, but that's why I take those stories with a grain of salt. It's like, they had to shoot the dog 13 times. It's like, did they really shoot the dog 13 times? Or they just fire the gun 13 times? I was picked up on something. Sorry, go ahead. Well, they do lose, like actually, well, these are rifle rounds. Where's the next page here? I was looking at, here we go. This is from Federal. So here we got, let's see. So here, if you look at the bottom of this chart here, where 300 Winchester, 150 grain bullet. I'm not sure, what is this other column? Okay, the grams. Okay, so that, maybe it's better if we look at the top here. So we have the muzzle energy, 2,800, but as you go out, that energy drops. But it's still, even if you go out to, what's at the end here? So 2,800 at the muzzle, and it's 7,860 at even at 500 yards. It's got, this thing has got, going to have 1,700 foot-pounds of energy, which is, that's still going to hit hard. It's going to hit really hard. Again, these are rifle rounds, but that's the thing.
Yeah, those are rifle rounds. Those aren't handgun rounds.
Right. But I would take.
So you got to divide that down by what, 8%? Oh no, you said how much? You said 3 times. Oh, so like 80%. Yeah. So you're gonna have to take 80% off of that.
Yeah. So this is you know, but that's the thing, is it's like shot placement is key. And I was actually I was on another podcast I was listening to the other day. They were talking about the New York City Police Department. And it's probably true with other police departments, is there'll be like, say there's like a convenience store robbery and the police show up and just spray bullets everywhere, you know, and there's like, you know, people are injured and there's property damage and so forth. But they think, okay, why don't they train the police better? And they said that, you know, the city actually did a cost benefit assessment. They figured it was cheaper to pay the lawsuits than it was to train the police officers better. So that's the thing, is, so even if it's a, damn's right. So that's the thing is that, you know, probably a lot of times, they probably, maybe the cops showed up and fired 100 rounds. Did they actually hit the dog? Maybe not, you know.
well, that's also, it's cheaper to keep her too.
They have to qualify, but really the standards are pretty low. I have that
like
on good
annually or something.
Yeah, I have that on good authority. Months. Back when I took my first class, it was a one-on-one with it was a retired police chief of a medium-sized. This is back in Jersey, New Jersey City. This is a police chief, a lifelong police officer. I was really good. I had a really good time. He was a really decent guy. But he said something. He said, yeah, most police officers really can't shoot very well. They can't. He said my officers only had to fire 30 rounds a year to requalify. And 30 rounds ain't shit. I mean, I'll go and fire like 200. Right. I mean, that's not, but that's like the minimum. So yeah, the required, I'm saying they're not all bad, but the officers that are like really good at it, either maybe they have a military background, like they were special forces or something, and or they train a lot on their own. But yeah, the standards for, not everywhere, but many police departments are actually very, very low.
Well, and that's probably because they don't really have to shoot every day.
They don't.
You
Yeah, they
probably
don't.
look for like sniper training if you were looking for precision and you know the kill shot and all that stuff. But yeah, thank God they don't have to shoot every day. And they shouldn't shoot every day, except they should shoot.
Well, they're like bully breeds. They just work out every day. They use their size as intimidation. The gun is the teeth.
Yeah, well, but they definitely should do target practice on attacking pit bulls. Come on, y'all. I mean, because they do that.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of videos in Colorado when I was living there, where they shot. I mean, it was just like everyone was pew 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 at this mountain lion that was treed. And these people were screaming, "Don't shoot it!" You know, and I was pissed and crying but you know, and it's like, why don't they tranquilize it and bring it back far up into the mountains or whatever? But you know, the territory, and they have 150 miles of territory, and they've already come down here into human territory, whatever they justify. But it was like target practice on that poor big cat.
Nah,
I mean,
what we should do is we should
shooting
mutt shots.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we should make mutt shots. You know, we all get together and we submit drawings, and then we can make targets and send it to the police departments to practice on dogs.
That's it.
Well, that's the thing is, yeah, you do need. There's another target I like. If we go to, let me hold on. I get my mic is off here. Hold on. These are targets that I like. What do they call it? I think Darkotic Go Fetch. Let me see if I can bring that up. Go Fetch. Here we go. Yeah, I love these. See that?
Ooh.
He's even got an arm in his mouth, right? Yeah, I like shooting at these. These are a lot of fun.
Hey, that's the accurate description when I see it.
Yeah, well, me too. That's my vision. But on Twitter last week when I was going through the rabbit holes, there was something about, maybe it was the Indiana Jones game, and somebody was complaining that you can't kill these dogs that are attacking you. The game maker disallows that the dog has to die, which is really stupid.
What?
Yeah.
Not on Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and that's my favorite part of the game. I go to the town and I wipe out all the dogs, and it pisses everybody in the community off. It's so funny.
I don't know. It's interesting too, but I haven't got it up, and I didn't buy any of the violent games. I got like a Pamela Anderson game or whatever, but I haven't even set it up. I gamed back.
You have to get that game, and you can play the character as a female too. Come on, honey. Get that game. You kill dogs, and let me tell you, when you kill enough dogs, they send mercenaries after you. The people chase you in the town. They turn into nutters. You get to take them out too. It is a blast. It is the best game ever. Wow. Anti-dog community, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, 2 thumbs up.
One thing you got to watch, it's funny because back, when I was blogging last decade, I get, because I bring this up because this is something of interest to a lot of people in the community. I mean, it really comes up a lot. Somebody asked me, they said, are there any like pit bull targets like you can buy commercially, like what we're looking at here? And I said, not that I know of. And I actually pointed him to this. It's like he could show me this is probably a pretty good proxy. And, in theory, you can print off a picture of anything and shoot at it. But here's the thing, right? That, well, first of all, many public ranges may prohibit certain images, right? Like, for example, if it's some public figure, like you start shooting at a photo of the Pope or something that can get you to at least probably get you kicked off the range. And you got to realize that I mean, something that's obviously like cartoonish like this is fine pretty much anywhere. But if you start shooting at like I say, actual dogs, that you got to realize, because some ranges may prohibit that. And you also got to realize too, is that we all know is like way too many people have a very unhealthy attachment to dogs. So that could, create some kind of escalating, confrontation. So I would not take like a photo of an actual dog to a public range to shoot at. That would be my advice. This, fine. But, picture of like, Annie Hornish's dog or something, that's probably just a bad idea. I would not use that as a target. My advice. So not a public.
Well, sorry. How to protect yourself? The same thing as with a knife or a machete or whatever, is you have to know where to cut. And that's a little bit more difficult because you have to get in and close while it's, mauling your friend or somebody. And if you don't cut right across the throat or whatever, you're trying to disengage that jaw and have it bleed out too. It's like, how would you learn to do something like that until the day comes and then your adrenaline is kicking in and whatever you got in your hand, you got to make it work,
Yeah. Well, a knife is and actually I'd probably go for the knife if the dog were attacking somebody else. Something like that happened. I've shared this story a few times, but I'll go through it real quick. There was a pit bull attack in my immediate neighborhood. Right at the other end of my block was a man walking his dog, was attacked by two off-leash pits, and one of the dogs attacked him. The other pit attacked his dog. So the dog that was attacking him, he put it like in a choke hold, right? He like squeezed its neck until it passed out. So he did that. Then he got out his pocket knife and he cut the throat of the dog that was attacking his dog. And that dog bled out and died. So it's kind of where I get the idea for that. So they could, that's pretty cool. What happened was when he was cutting the throat of the dog that was attacking his dog, the dog that attacked him recovered and ran off. So
there was a video like that. It was a white dog and the guy choked it out. It was on top of a lady or a kid. And he choked it out and he was holding it for a while. The lady got away or whatever, and he let the dog go, and then it came out of it. It's like, finish the job, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, because now it's really pissed. Now it's pumped full of adrenaline and it lost air supply for a little bit there. It's probably, wow. I mean, finish the job.
Yeah.
The best thing to do is find the jugular, because a lot of times people aren't going to cut deep enough. I'm going to have to be pretty gruesome and just stab that shit and twist and just make a nice little hole and drain that pool. Let all that disgusting matter just leak out of that mutt, and then it won't get back up.
Yeah. Yep. Hey guys, we're in for like 2.5 hours, so I'm gonna wrap it up. Like the other week was like 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, we were going hard.
Yeah, we just kept going. It's really great talking to you guys. I'm having a blast, but I got to kind of manage this. I think I might do a little trimming on this. Maybe I'll see if I get it down to like 2:15 or something, if you don't mind. And then, I got to do the whole export. Maybe I'll do a premiere tomorrow. So we'll leave it on that note. So with that said, this is Animal on Control. And as always, Merry Christmas, hardy har har.
Hey, y'all stay safe.
You too.
Yeah,
have a good one if I don't talk to you.
Yeah.
All right. Later. Okay. Bye-bye.